I'm Joseph Lamena, Managing Director of AdvisorAnalyst.com. Our special guests on this episode are Richard Heft and Andrew Broadhead of EXT Marketing. Richard Heft is the co-founder and president of EXT Marketing, and Andrew Broadhead is EXT's head of content. They are also co-authors of the new bestseller, The Ascendant Advisor.
This is the Insight is Capital podcast.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the individual guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of AdvisorAnalyst.com or of our guests. This broadcast is meant to be for informational purposes only. Nothing discussed in this broadcast is intended to be considered as advice.
Richard, Andrew, welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you for inviting us, Joseph.
Oh, you're welcome. To kick things off, describe the arcs of your careers, where you started, how you ended up here, and what are you up to?
Well, for anybody who doesn't know me, they should know that my hair actually is quite a bit thicker than it looks on camera right now. I'm seeing quite a distinct glare up there. I've been in the financial services sector for roughly 155 or so years. I started early days of the mutual fund industry when it was really blossoming into, basically every advisor selling mutual funds, every bank wanting to get in on them. I helped launch the first index-based mutual fund when I was at TD Asset Management. That's where I started in marketing. Worked at Scotia Capital, worked at Franklin Templeton, worked at John Hancock in the retirement plan services division. And throughout, I've really benefited. The industry has been just an exceptional place for my career. And I've learned a tremendous amount about, not just investments, but, the marketing function and the importance of the marketing function in asset managers' businesses and how they help build an advisor's book, or how marketing helps build an advisor's book. And, this is the impetus for the Ascendant Advisor is just, Andrew and I recognized that advisors, their business has changed over the years, and there's a lot of them don't know all that much about marketing. That wasn't part of their core sort of training, and we wanted to sort of help fill that gap.
Excellent. How about yourself, Andrew?
So I started in financial services around 2004 at AIM Trimark.
Okay.
It's Invesco Canada now. And I started in the mailroom. Oh, wow. Opening letters during RSP season. I think the name of the forms were T2033s.
That's right.
And I had no idea what they were. And then I moved into office services. I have a philosophy degree, so I didn't have too many job prospects.
Yeah.
So I started as a temp, and they ended up hiring me full time. And then as I got to know people, I realized that there's a marketing department at these companies, and I've always enjoyed writing, and I realized that could be a route for me to be a writer and actually get paid at the same time, which is an added benefit. And so I ended up in client services during a pretty tough time in the industry. So I'm still suffering a bit of PTSD when the phone rings, even though it's been 14 years or 15 years. I can still picture the person screaming at me on the other end of the phone saying, "Why are my funds underperforming?" And then after a couple of years doing that, I ended up in the marketing department, as a junior writer. And over the years, I worked up as become a more senior writer. And when I was in that marketing department, I met my wife, my future wife, Rebecca. And so after kind of secretly dating for a year, we quit and went to South America for a while. And then when I came back, my old boss introduced me to Richard. And it was a pretty funny phone call that I don't think I'm going to forget. I called him and I said, "Do you have any work for me? Can I do some temp work?" And he said, no, this is an awful job. It's very stressful. You don't want to work here. And then that was like a 2-minute phone call. And then he called me back 5 minutes later and offered me a job.
Oh, excellent.
So years later, here we are.
Wow.
I really do I've been a very lucky person. The team that I worked with at Invesco was incredible. And then being a part of, EXT for the past 10 years is, it's been really, really, enlightening for me. Rich underplays what he and Jillian have achieved at EXT, but, I was there from an early time, and just seeing us grow from a company of 4 people to, I think it's 25 plus now.
Wow.
It's been quite a 10-year.
Wow.
Yeah, Jillian and I are notoriously humble.
Yeah. Well, Andrew, you brought back some old terminology, T2033s. My God, that was the day when you used to hustle, running down the hallway. Yeah, so I remember those days like yesterday. It was thanks for bringing that up, haunting me. We've come a long way since then. So, guys, first off, I wanted to say congratulations. The Ascendant Advisor is a well thought out, comprehensive marketing roadmap for advisors to grow into, or rather to ascend into.
Nice.
What motivated you guys to write the Ascendant Advisor?
Basically, over my career, especially since the founding of EXT, probably over 200 advisors have come to me at different points and said, I want to start a blog. And, we always have these conversations like, how much time are you willing to commit to this blog? How many ideas do you have for this blog? How much money, if you're not willing to put the time in yourself, how much money are you willing to spend to get somebody else to write your blog for you? And so I was thinking, okay, maybe I'll write a white paper on, writing content or creating content, because the advisor business, and we talk a lot about this in the book, the advisor's business has really evolved over the years. Sitting across a table with clients doesn't happen anymore. That's not part of their practices, as we all know. We started writing the book actually before COVID, but and I was thinking, well, technology and fee compression and product proliferation and regulatory change, all these things have really combined to make the advisor's business more challenging. The discussions completely different than maybe they were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when a lot of these advisors got into the business. So I said, maybe we can start giving them some tips on, how do you start a blog? What does an editorial calendar look like? What type of content would you write? How would you engage your team to help you? All of these kinds of tips. And I started writing, and I had one chapter that was about 50 pages. And I'm like, okay, I'll move on to the next chapter. And it was like 2 pages. So I said, okay, firstly, it's too big for a white paper. And secondly, I clearly have no idea how to write a book. So I thought, Andrew is a guy who, we've worked together for, he says 10 years. I'm pretty sure it's more than that, because he was one of our first hires. And we have a similar sort of sense of humor, sensibility. And he's a senior communicator almost, as I am. So I thought, maybe I'll ask him to sort of help me build out some of these ideas that I'm clearly not getting to myself. And so bringing Andrew in, he really sort of helped flush out a lot of the ideas that I was, that I didn't have, and brought, a tremendous amount to the table beyond how I expected the book to sort of be, and at the end of the day, just the collaboration went really, really well. And, super proud of the book, super excited to have it out there. And we see this as the beginning. We want to help advisors build, stronger practices in light of the pandemic and all these other challenges that I mentioned earlier, like, dealing with technology. How do you talk about that? What are you telling your clients when you're, and what are clients asking you that you're responding to? So we felt that we could help them build stronger businesses, because at the end of the day, they're all business people. And as a business person, their goal should be to build the strongest possible business, one that they can either maybe sell or they can pass on to another generation. And if they're losing assets, if assets are going out the door to a robo, we want them, their business ultimately is not going to be as valuable as if they continue to build it by engaging family members, right? We all hear about the intergenerational wealth transfer and the trillions of dollars. And we've done a lot of work in that space for our clients. But the fact is, we also wanted to give them tips on, okay, instead of just talking to your client's kids, why don't you talk to their spouse? right? Because their spouse is probably going to inherit those assets, possibly decades before the kids, right? So
absolutely,
you have to think about all these strategies, and these were ideas that sort of Andrew really helped, fulminate, because it was, without that, I was just going to say, okay, here's how you write a white paper, and then it became this thing like, how do you build a stronger practice and business and add that much more value for your clients, and talk about that value.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry,
when
Andrew.
Rich asked me, I didn't think too long about it. Worst case scenario is we were just going to refine how we talked about all these different content marketing ideas, and how we could, offer just a little bit more focused ideas and answers to people's questions. Best case scenario is we helped a lot of people grow the business.
Yeah.
And, when we were writing it, we put a lot of thought into the style of the book and how we wanted it to just progress. Neither of us are big fans of those books that are one chapter is kind of one long story. You're halfway through the story and you're wondering, why am I reading this? What's the lesson here? We wanted you to just flip through any page and you're going to find a tip that's probably going to be pretty helpful. And I think we pulled it off. The book's broken up into sections on social, websites, writing tips, then also some of the challenges advisors face, how to get your message out. And I think it works. An advisor can just flip open the page, find something they like, maybe go backwards to the beginning of the chapter, read the whole chapter, then start from the beginning. You can approach it a million different ways. And it's loaded with very practical tips. Nothing in there that Rich and I have speculated about. Everything in there has been tested. So that's why we're pretty confident that it's going to be a helpful book, because we know that advisors and financial firms have used these ideas to reach their clients and stuff.
And these methods, and you touch on a good point. It is a great book. I have to admit to that. And Richard, you mentioned collaboration, and collaboration is if you don't have that collaboration, I can see it. I can see that there's a collaboration between the two of you, and for what I'm getting at is that collaboration is very important, and Pierre and I have the same thing, and we've been together for a number of years. I've known Pierre for, we're going. I don't want to. It's just going to give my age off. But anyways, I've known him for over 20 years. But collaboration is important, and that's one of the reasons why we managed to put this little thing we have called Advisor Analyst together. So I get it, and I think it's a great reason to write the book together. At the beginning of your book, you cite 6 new challenges facing advisors.
Right.
I think it'll be helpful to talk about these 6 challenges. If you can elaborate, deep dive. I think it would be really important for our audience to get a good understanding of what those 6 challenges are.
Yeah, and I alluded to some of them earlier, and I'm referring to the book. I just want to make sure we cover all of them. This is a bit of a skill testing question. So, product proliferation, we do talk a lot, we help the manufacturers put messaging around a lot of their new products. So we were, and we have an office in the US. So we're lucky enough that we have a vantage that sometimes regulatory change will make products available down there before they're available, say, in Canada. So, with liquid alternatives, we were working in that space in the U.S. about 2 years before the regulatory change allowed them to become more readily available to a retail investor in Canada. And I was thinking, thematically, you have more ESG type products, especially now during COVID. They've become, certainly more popular for more investors and advisors to sell. But in a lot of cases, a lot of advisors who got into the business 25 years ago, may not have spoken to a lot of these types of products. So, they have clients coming in and asking them for details. And a lot of the time the manufacturers may not have provided, or their dealership hasn't given them, enough information to speak, in a very educated fashion. So that was sort of the first, when I broke into the business, it was basically mutual funds, and then it became ETFs, and it became active ETFs, smart beta ETFs, like I said, liquid alternatives, and sort of all these different types of products and thematic type products.
Yeah.
To us, it was, I think about the advisor going, a client coming in and asking them about some of these products and them going, I have no, tools to speak about this. So that was a big, that's a big challenge and sort of a bit of an evolution of the client's business and the book and, the product shelf that they may be speaking to. The other challenge, is technology, right?
Yes.
These products, online platforms and these type do-it-yourself type of platforms, they've changed the nature of the client conversation because, in the past, a client would go to their, advisor and just say, can you put me in this fund or put me in this stock or, whatever it was, depending on whether they were MFDA or IROC.
Yeah.
These days, it's, these people can do a lot of that kind of stuff themselves, and then they start questioning the fees. And we want to help the advisor sort of steer the conversation away from fees and more about their value. And a lot of that came about with the regulatory change, which is challenge number 3, coincidentally, where things like CRM2, which launched over a multi-year, had a multi-year rollout, change, all of a sudden the client statements were different. And the client was seeing the actual dollar value they're paying their advisor and, raises all these questions. Well, what are you doing during, in the intervals between that semi-annual or annual meeting? And we also wanted to help arm the advisor with sort of those answers. What is their value? Things that they don't think about. And we did a ton of work around this at, extension marketing, during the rollout of CRM2. Like, how do you talk about your value and your value proposition and what you're bringing to the table? All these things advisors previously maybe didn't have to think about quite as much, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry, Andrew, did you want to break in?
I saw him smiling. He was about to, like he wanted to say something.
That was a point or two ago, but Richard's summarizing it perfectly. I don't really want to interrupt, but I will say that when it comes to going back to that technology piece, advisors before were just competing with one another, but now they're also competing against a suite of digital tools.
Yeah.
And it's important that they, have to frame who they are and what they do, not just against other human advisors, but lots of technology solutions being provided by other financial companies, people that are breaking into the financial world from the tech industry, who are coming at it from a completely different perspective. It's not an easy task, but we're hoping that, the things we outline in this book really help them refine that message. Sorry to cut you off there, Rich.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I wanted to make sure that we highlighted that one.
Yeah. And again, they sort of tie one into the other. Like challenge number 4 is really that there's a widespread perception, and this is being fed by a lot of the low fee sort of providers out there, that advisors just make a lot of money and don't add a ton of value in their clients' day-to-day lives. And this is something that again is being fed in commercials and through a lot of the sort of more low cost sort of product managers. And we really again and the good thing about the rollout of CRM2 and the regulatory change was that it really forced a lot of advisors to say, look, I'm more than just that annual meeting. I'm adding so much, whether it's portfolio monitoring, whether it's continuing education, all of these types of things, an advisor may not have thought about sort of their ongoing education and portfolio management, portfolio, monitoring, rebalancing, all of these things. They may not talk about that actively because, they think, well, the client probably knows it already and won't assign that much value to it, but there is a big value to it. So this was another challenge that we sort of talked a lot about in the book, as well as, the sort of somewhat opaque nature of what the financial advisor is and what they do. There's a lot of different names: financial advisor, investment advisor, mutual fund salesperson, all these things. And, the industry and the regulators, it's been a bit loose on how those terms are used. And so I think, you talk about, the client confusion. I think a lot of advisors are probably confused about sort of how these different titles are thrown around and what they mean and the value they add and the work they do for their clients. So that's become a bit of a challenge as well, because an advisor doesn't know if somebody, goes online and Googles, mutual fund salesperson if their name's going to pop up and if that really reflects sort of the work they do. And the final challenge was that, frankly, as part of the product proliferation and the thematic type things, like investors today are aligning, maybe their portfolios a little more closely with their values, and not just their values, maybe their spouse's values, maybe the values of the people who will inevitably inherit a lot of those assets. So this was sort of another challenge in terms of how do you talk about products that you may not be that used to, that you may need to have a better knowledge of, and again speaks to that value of the education and how they continue to learn and incorporate different elements into clients' portfolios to meet their short and long-term financial needs or risk tolerances and all those things that they would normally refer to a know your client sort of form to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. And thank you for covering that. One of the very interesting points you make in part 2 is that while the industry has regulations and many different requirements to ensure that advisors know their clients, there seemed to be a lack of effort on the part of many advisors to make themselves known to their clients, and more importantly, to their potential public. The chapter I'm referring to is Know Your Advisor. I love this part. Everybody Googles everybody. So how disappointing is it when a referral Googles their prospective advisor and is unable to find out anything more about them other than their basic profile and contact info?
Well, I can imagine it would be pretty disappointing. They, and just going back to something that Rich mentioned before is that, if you're not telling this story yourself, somebody else is going to tell it.
Yes.
And he referred to a lot of more techie-oriented businesses slamming advisors, not putting all the hard work they do in the best light. And what's interesting is that in today's world, in the current situation, advisors, in a sense, they really do have the upper hand. They've got the email lists, they have the client phone numbers, they can call people up and tell them. And they're pretty much strapped for time, so you can't do it as much as you want to. And that's where a lot of what we talk to in the book really comes in handy, and it's using something like LinkedIn to get your message out. And not always just talking about business. Like, there's plenty of opportunities for advisors to talk about what they do. I think you'd be pretty hard pressed to find a group of people that are more engaged in the community.
Yeah.
The advisors I've met over the years, it's just a laundry list of them being involved in the community. And not everybody knows that, but each one of those is an opportunity to, it's not bragging. It's just you telling your network, your clients, your prospects, how you care. They want to know. That also ties into this idea of investors being able to invest in things they care about. Generally people care about their community and they want to know that the people they're working with care as well. And how you pull that off, there's many different ways. It's about getting your website in order. About getting SEO right. We just introduced SEO because, we wanted to make sure that this book really is for people who are getting started or who are started and want to move up a little bit. There's not too much in this book that's overly technical. It's probably nothing is overly technical.
Yeah.
It's also about refining your message. Just making sure you know who you are and that you're talking to the right people. Rich, you want to add in any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I mean, that was a big one for us in terms of, advisors, build their practices and are very proud at how much they know about their clients. And it's super important for them to have a good understanding of like I said, their clients' needs, expectations, risk tolerances, all of family members, all of those types of things. But what's never spoken or rarely spoken about is sort of how much do the clients know about the advisor? And like Andrew said, in the absence of you crafting that story, whether it's online, in person, whatever it is, you're leaving other people to craft that story for you. And that's a kind of a bit of a dangerous thing, because it could be competitors saying, well, he or she doesn't do that for you, but I will. And I have all these, tools at my disposal to help you meet your financial needs and goals and aspirations. Whereas a lot of that, and so, you have to counter these falsehoods, or these misperceptions by creating a narrative for yourself. And that is, to me, almost the crux of the whole content story. Why are you creating content? You're creating it to educate your clients, to engage your clients, to, really, have clients understand what they need to know. But most of all, they need to know that you are that person who can help them with these things, can help them learn, can help them grow their portfolios, can help them get their kids into university and help fund that, university, college, whatever it is, experience. Mm-hmm. So, you need to be the one to craft that story and not just be all things to all people, maybe narrow your areas of expertise to places where, you do the best work. Frankly, yeah. Like if you and we sort of use the example of, you're the I think the education expert. So when your clients have kids, you're the one helping them plan for that kid's future, and maybe Absolutely. Engaging the kids sort of as part of the intergenerational wealth transfer component of building your business, and ensuring that the business continues to have value because the kids have met you. They've been part of this planning. So it all feeds well into into itself, and it starts with great content.
Yeah. And one of the content ideas related to this area that we talk about is sharing ideas about the courses you've taken. Mm-hmm. And it seems very simple, but again, just like advisors are involved in charities, I'm not sure you could find another group of people that take more continuing education courses than financial advisors, and insurance advisors as well. And there are so many topics that you could share with your clients, interesting facts you've learned, just letting them know that you're rounding out your skill set, offering new services potentially. And, for an advisor struggling with content, it's a gold mine if you talk about the facts and interesting ideas you've learned in your course.
This is good stuff. It really is interesting. How exciting would it be to find out your prospective advisor has presence and personality?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that, frankly, I think presence and personality is kind of trumped by sort of knowledge and experience and the ability to translate big financial topics into bite-sized, blog articles that can be shared with their clients in a drip sort of campaign, so that the client is constantly seeing that the advisor has this knowledge, is sharing this knowledge, is helping them build this knowledge. Your presence and personality is great. I mean, look, there's a sales component to the job. So obviously it's going to help them, build relationships if they're super charming and have, a great sense of humor like me. And so, to me, it's great, but, the content has to back it up, and the ability to connect with clients and help clients, enhance their lives is really important too.
Good.
Yeah, I think one of the things we highlighted in this book is just this ability to be a teacher and an educator and a guide. So, to Richard's point, big personalities, it's sales, it matters, but there has to be, especially if you're building a book for the long term, something that can handle the death of the client and those assets staying with you. You're going to have a much different personality besides just being, big. It has to be a little bit more refined, or the opposite of refined. There has to be more sides to you than just big and bold, I think, if you're going to really think about having a book that is multi-generational.
I would agree with you on that. without a doubt, I think every single advisor needs to read your book. So without giving away the keys to the kingdom, let's talk about some of the ways advisors can develop different kinds of content and communications.
Yeah, in the book, we talk about the different strategies for developing content. And again, it goes back to sort of that initial, comment I made where it's like, advisor comes to, me and says, I want to start a blog. And, generally speaking, it's, I always say you could talk about your product and your services, and that'll get you a very small part of the way there because that's not engagement. If really all you're talking about is I sell this fund or I can sell these ETFs, it's interesting to a point, but is it really enhancing or engaging, a client? Whereas if you're giving them new information and, we've had advisors do blog articles about, planting spring bulbs, right? Yeah. Like these lifestyle things and these, tips and trends that they may be seeing to share that kind of stuff. That's way more valuable than talking about an emerging markets fund, right? And it's good. You can integrate some of that stuff, but what you really need to do is think about, the tip is, you can't commit to it unless you're going to commit to it for the long term, because a lot of advisors will, do 3 blogs and go like, I'm not sort of seeing great metrics and my clients aren't engaging. I haven't seen an uptick in sales. And we always sort of say like, you got to give it some time because people start referring back to it. So we say, if you're going to post once a week, post on the same day, roughly the same time. Because then if the content is good, clients may go back and revisit, say, oh, I wonder what Andrew's writing about this week, because last week's article was really helpful for me. I had a great discussion with my kid about diversification, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of those tips where it's like, do it at the same time, do it consistently, commit to a long term, put together an editorial calendar. And this is a really big key. And we talk a lot about this in the book where it's like, if you walk into work on a Wednesday and go, I have to write a book about dollar cost averaging, or not book, I have to write a blog article about dollar cost averaging, you can get writer's block and freeze and then have to stare at a blank screen for 3 hours, and that's wasted time. Whereas Absolutely. If you have an editorial calendar, you will have already known that Wednesday you're publishing an article on dollar cost averaging. So you may have already started writing it or putting together some thoughts or researching it. It'll help you sort of get part of the way there. And then we talk a bit about putting together work back schedules. So, you start writing it and you leave yourself some time to have somebody review it, especially somebody maybe in compliance, so that you know that you're on side and that it's properly vetted. And then you give yourself some time for the updates. So we talk a lot about the editorial calendar in terms of knowing what you're going to write, and then the work back schedule on knowing how you're going to produce those articles. And then you can throw in different types of content. We talk, of course, we talk a lot about, blog articles or LinkedIn articles, because Andrew and I both come from the writing trade, but there's nothing stopping you from producing videos, infographic, listicles. And we go into what listicles actually are in the book. There's all different types of content to engage your clients. And the important thing is to keep making it valuable and to be consistent with it and to commit to it over a longer term. And if you need to bring in other experts or members of your team to help you write the stuff, there's no reason not to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, a big key that we talk about again and again, kind of directly and indirectly, is just this idea of extending the life of everything you produce. So if you've written an article, you post it on your website, you share it on LinkedIn once, and then, you clap your hands, you're done, we did a great job, and then nobody read it. Well, you've got to do more marketing than that. You've got to find opportunities to use that copy again, share it in different mediums. So a newsletter. And when it comes to social, so, when we published this book and we announced it on LinkedIn, an advisor reached out to me. He's an old friend of mine and said, this is a great book. I can't wait for it to show up. And I said, great. Thank you very much for reaching out. I haven't seen you in ages. It's great to hear from you. And then, what happened is, since we then spoke, LinkedIn finally put his posts into my feed. So there's another interesting little thing about to know about LinkedIn. Like the more you use it, the more productive it can become for you.
Yes.
And then I saw he post his newsletter on LinkedIn with one comment, and then that was it. And then I was thinking to myself, I got to reach out to him and tell him, you can share this again and again and again. There's no reason to only share it once because you don't want to upset your network. But there's a good chance nobody saw it in the first place.
Yeah.
And a different way to share that article. Pick out the stats that you shared in it. Pick out any cool ideas, and you can use those as your introductions. It's a way to really expand the lifespan of any sort of piece of content you do. So that's an interesting little trick for articles.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And Richard, you mentioned, you mentioned something that I'm really, I stand behind is consistency. So, posting out a piece on a certain day of the week, every day, or, consistency is important. And that's one of the things that we talk with our team as well, that if you're going to be doing this, make sure it's on this particular date and continue doing that. And you'll see that the numbers will, you'll start getting more views and more followers and so forth. So we understand that completely. And then I just wanted to add to that it is a valid point, and to your point as well, Andrew. So there's so much in this book that I have to admit, I was overwhelmed by the wealth of knowledge you shared in this book, right down to one of the biggest challenges facing advisors today. And that's the question of, how do you get your clients' children, their heirs on board? How do you engage today's emerging generation?
We talk a lot in the book about, where kids are these days and how they want to be communicated to. We say basically communicate to them however they want, right? Mm-hmm. So, my impression, and, we've done a bit of work in this space where, my impression is that a lot of the kids today don't want people coming into their space. They're not going to go into your office. Well after COVID, my impression is that this is not how they tend to communicate with one another. There's direct message, DM, there's social, and you're going to have to, as an advisor, if you're going to connect with the next generation, in a lot of cases, obviously this is a blanket statement, and there may be some kids who really do like that sort of face-to-face experience, but I think a lot of kids these days spend more time on their phones and in front of screens. And if you can communicate with them effectively via those mediums, they'll understand that you're not sort of just their parent's advisor who only knows those old school ways to sort of communicate, where it's like sitting across a table, pointing at different graphs and tables and figures, but you're willing to connect with them on a sort of level where they tend to congregate. Again, you have to understand the etiquette of these different platforms because, it's easy to say, get onto, Snapchat and snap. I guess that's a term. Snap, send photo. You got to be pretty careful that you don't look like a dinosaur communicating through these platforms as well. So if you're going to use Instagram, know the general word count, or Twitter, which has a character, character count. Get to know these platforms. Use them properly where possible. Even DM, because there are ways to show your age on all of these different platforms. It's best to avoid sort of, stepping into those pitfalls that these platforms can have for older folk like myself who are trying to communicate with others. But, there are a lot of tips out there. There's lots of ways, again, educational, helpful, understanding language, and stay within word counts. So if you're on Facebook, you may have a longer word count, so you can have a longer article than on Twitter, where you may just use that for a quick message for people who are interested in your most recent article to go back to where it's hosted on Facebook, or even better, your website.
Yeah. I laugh because, Richard, and I'll let you get to it, Andrew, but I laugh because, I feel like I'm a dinosaur around this stuff. I'm not going to lie to you, right? So my kids, my kid, he's, no, Dad, that's not the way you do it, right? And I'm like, and I want to, I'm just like, I'm not on Twitter every single day, but when I am, I'm sitting there trying to write a text or a little message to get across to my followers, and I guess I'm writing too much, and kids look at me, no, Dad, that's not the way you do it. It has to be very short and sweet and get to the point, right? So I'm just going on and on, but yeah, it's amazing that you learn so much on this. But anyway, sorry, Andrew, go ahead.
Just to your point too, I think as you get older, at least when it comes to the communication side of things, I think guys like us probably overthink.
Yeah.
What we're about to post. And, younger people they don't think about it. It's more stream conscious. It's more as though they're just documenting their life. Whereas we want our tweets and what we share to be these big insights into life. But it's not necessarily what you have to do in order to be successful on social. But to Richard's point as well, too, you can also, in the real world, you could, like IRL, you could, ask to have the kids or the children of your clients be brought into meetings. So you can have family meetings talking about financial planning.
Yes.
Also, when it comes to producing content, if you can't reach those kids directly yet, you can share and produce content that is empathetic to their situation to your clients. Mm-hmm. And just directly say, this is a great article for your kids. It might help them deal with the things they're dealing with, whether it's schooling or, the current housing situation is obviously going to be a very big challenge for different generations, and sharing articles and writing about those issues and showing that you empathize with their situation is a good way to start building that relationship, even if you can't meet the children face to face yet.
I agree with you on that. It's amazing. They're growing up real quickly, and before you know it, it's just going to go in a heartbeat. But
just one thing, Joseph. I just again, we do spend I spent the vast majority of my career talking about, again, intergenerational wealth transfer and the trillions of dollars that are going to pass from one generation to the next. And I do have to say that a lot less work is put into just encouraging advisors to make it a whole family experience, right? So it isn't just the children. If you're going to build a stronger business, you have got to speak to both spouses, right?
Absolutely.
Because if there's a tendency, I think, out there to sort of, because you have this, you're always going to have a strong relationship with one person or the other. They could be a family member, a friend, the initial contact, the person who may, be more interested and engaged in the financial planning process. And, it's super, super key to sort of include both members of the relationship. And I say spouses, but whatever relationship it is, because that person, one of those people is going to inherit those assets. And one of those people, I hate to say it, women do tend to live longer than men. I don't hate to say it. I hate it for myself personally, because, I can hear the clock ticking. But, for me, it's really about, an advisor speaking to the person who is going to inherit that money, because they may be holding on to that money till well past the advisor's retirement. So certainly if they want to maintain the value of their business, it's the kids. It's also both members of the relationship. We made a point of sort of speaking to that just because, again, we want to help advisors build stronger practices, build businesses that will transcend, them. Or outlive them, and this is just a really good way to do it. Is to engage the whole family, the kids, the spouse, both spouses, all of it.
I agree. So, guys, what's been the biggest lesson you each learned during this extraordinary pandemic year? And I'll let you guys both answer that. Take your time, think about it. I know we don't have, but. Yeah, I'd like to know this.
I'll start. I don't know if it's as much as a lesson, but the thing that I've been most, the thing that's meant the most to me has actually been able to spend more time with my family.
Yes.
I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and being able to spend significantly more time with her than I would have had I been living life regularly really has been the most meaningful year of my life. It's been a tough year, obviously, for a number of reasons, but when it comes to the family, it's been very, very good for me. So I guess my lesson would be that when things start returning to normal, I'm going to make sure that I spend all that extra time with my daughter.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you.
And I've learned that it is possible to spend $8,000 a month on streaming services. I have to have every single one of them. My cable bill at this point, cable.
Yeah.
Talking about sounding like a dinosaur is I think my last one was $800. So thank you. I'm not going to name the cable service.
It's amazing how we cut the cord to not have 15 different channels.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
We got stuck with it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an amazing year, I'll tell you that much, and I agree with you. Listen,
how about you, Joseph?
Myself, you touched on a point. Family time has been, and thank you for the question, Andrew. Family time has been really, when I went on my own to start Advisor Analyst was a big decision. I was front and center. I hit the pavement, got on the GO train every single day, went downtown, there early, coming home late. And when I became, working for myself, I was starting to enjoy the benefits, but I was still grinding and hustling and trying to do what I had to do. But when the pandemic hit, it was just amazing how much quality time I was able to spend with my family. All of us were under one roof. We had conversations that we probably wouldn't have had before because we were just so preoccupied and busy. My son has a very busy schedule, with his athletic piece there, and obviously he's going off to university, so he was working extremely hard on his academics, and my wife doing the whole part of it of marketing and everything else, and myself. I'm going to say family. I've learned to realize that I tend to eat a lot of nuts, and I didn't realize that I can gain so much weight. That's the downfall. So I had to sort of stop buying that, and spending more time with my furry friends here. I have one right below my feet here, right at my feet right now. And the hard part for Andrew, you mentioned when this whole thing goes back to normal, I think the ones who are going to suffer the most in our particular case is our dogs. We're around them constantly, and they were so used to before going to the office, coming home and waiting for us by the door. Now we're constantly home all day long. So I think they're going to have the hardest effect of all of this, right, when we go back to normal.
Sorry, can I change my answer to the family thing too? What I've come to realize is I love spending time with family.
I know that. I know you, Richard.
Family's just great.
It is, and without them, I think they're the ones that keep our sanity. But you actually get to learn yourself, and you learn your flaws, and it gives you an opportunity to reflect on them and try to improve on them, and obviously make everyone happy. So everyone has their own ways of dealing with things, but. I'm grateful. All I can say is that health and family and everyone's healthy. That's all that matters. So I'll tell you one thing. I miss going out to sit down with my parents. I haven't been able to do that. And once this whole thing dies down, I'll give them both a great big hug. So that's what I'm looking forward to as well. one of the things I want to ask you guys, and I want to, first off, before I say thank you, tell us where we can easily find you guys. Where can we find the book?
So the book is available on Amazon in Canada.ca and in the US, Amazon.com. Please, if you pick up the hard copy, do not spend more than $21 on it. Resellers have been jolting the price unnecessarily, but it is available for $21 or less on Amazon. If it isn't, please let us know. You can reach us. Andrew, will you give our email addresses? I don't know ours offhand.
Reach Richard at Heft, so RHEFT at ascendantadvisor.com. And you can reach me at Broadhead, ABROADHEAD at ascendantadvisor.com. And of course, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Just search for Andrew Broadhead, head of content at EXT, and then for Rich, search for founder of EXT. Or you can also search for the Ascendant Advisor. We set up a book page, so we're also going to be sharing insights specific to the book from that page, as well as what Richard and I are up to as we're on this marketing journey that we're doing. We also put a website together, ascendantadvisor.com, and you can sign up for a newsletter there, or just to be on our list. It hasn't gone too live yet, but we're going to end up sharing some more insights from the book and then some probably deeper insights being built out from the ideas in the book there as well. So we're all over the place. Reach out. We're more than willing to talk and chat. It's what we love to do.
Excellent. That was the answer I was looking for. Thank you, Andrew.
Andrew did so much better. I'm like, what's my email again?
Listen, guys, again, I want to say congratulations. It is a wonderful book, and I think that every advisor should get out there and pick it up. I want to thank you for your time, and it means a lot. Thank you. Thank you again.
Joseph, thank you for having us on. We love the work you're doing at Advisor Analyst, and we appreciate you giving us a chance to chat with you today. And hopefully, there's many more of these.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Richard.